Welcome to our World of Fire webinar. This session is called The Building Blocks of Process Control. My name is Joanna Portela, and today I'll be your host. This is the first session of two, but before we start, I would like to go through some housekeeping rules. The first one is that you are all on mute, so if you have any questions or comments during the session, you can ask them through the Q&A section or on the chat window. And if you do use the chat, please send your questions or comments to all panelists so we can all read them and answer you. If you do experience any audio issues during the session, you may try changing your audio options on WebEx or also dial in via telephone. The dial-in numbers you can find in the email confirmation you received, or you can also have a look at the chat. I posted a link to the numbers together with the access code there. And nowadays we have a lot of sometimes some bandwidth issues, so do try that if you have some audio issues. And I would also like to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a link to it in an email in a couple of days, together with all of the resources we mentioned here today. And lastly, I would like to ask you to take a minute to answer a survey in the end of our webinar to let us know how we did, so we can always improve our content for you. All right, so that was it from my side. Let's start. Carrie, take it away.
Thank you, Joanna. So welcome everyone to our two-part colour webinar series that focuses on best practices to reach your colour goals and, importantly, maintain them. So today, in part one, we're going to cover the building blocks of colour process control, including what great colour looks like and why it matters to businesses. So understanding what does great colour actually mean, plus how to understand customer expectations on colour as well. We'll also cover what the foundations are for successful colour management. So what tools do you need? What knowledge do you need? Plus, what is actually colour process control? And we'll also take a look at the elements and first steps to establish standard operating procedures for colour, and why mastering these is the key to colour success for your business now and in the future. In part two, next month, we'll cover how techniques and using the latest technology and solutions can make maintaining great colour easier than ever before. I'm now going to hand you over to John Nate, Senior Educational Architect and Trainer, to take you through the details of the building blocks of colour process control. Take it away, John.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Joanna. And certainly thank you, everyone, for stopping by today for this first of the two-part series in the area of color, my favorite subject to talk on. And what we're going to talk about today is really a lot of the background information and get a little more into the hands-on and how-to in next month's session. So make sure you show up next month, and it'll kind of tie all this together. What we're talking about really is the building blocks in order for you to get great color today. And this all comes under this heading of process control. It includes setting up standards for your shop. It includes monitoring and taking care of maintenance on your print engine, that your toner or ink is the toner and ink that you want to use, that the media is properly selected, that you perform calibration and move on to profiling. And kind of the high end of process control is verification of the color. It's kind of a new area in our realm, but it is something that is certainly very, very important. And if you do all that, well, you pass, you get great color, and this is what you and your customers really want. Before we really get going, I do have a quick poll question that should pop up. Does your company have a color management solution in place today? And that can be just something as simple as, you use what's built into Command Workstation, or you've got Fiery Color Profiler Suite, or something like that. We'll reveal the results in just a little bit. All right. So after this webinar, you should be able to define what great color is. What do we mean by that? Explain why great color matters to both you and to your customers. Define your specific color goals. What are you trying to accomplish? What do you maybe see as lacking in your particular situation right now? Understand the concepts and value of process control. List the process control components. These may be components you already have in place, or it might be components that you would like to implement. Establish a set of standard operating procedures. What do we do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in order to ensure that our color is accurate? And then decide what are the next steps that we want to take. Let's take a look at the poll results here. It'll pop up on my screen. Joanna, nothing's popping up on my screen.
Sorry, John, it should be up now. Sorry, I could unmute myself while I was closing. You didn't allow me. So you should have it now?
Nope, nothing.
Nope.
Can you read
sorry.
it?
Let me, okay. Should it,
there
is
we
it
go.
now?
So
good.
33% yes, have a solution. 56%. So the majority of you don't have really any solution in place yet. So hopefully today you will come to realize the importance of having that in place moving forward. All right. Get rid of that. So what is great color and what does it actually mean to your business? Well, great color is, it's kind of one of those things in the color area that it depends. It's obviously color that we like, color that looks good. It might be pleasing color. Pleasing color is kind of a difficult area because what's pleasing to one person, well, might not be pleasing to another person because it brings taste into the equation. Accurate color is a little different. We're going to get into what accurate color is in today's presentation. Ultimately, it's about color that sells. You know, if you're producing work for other people, for a manager, for people that pay you to produce color, well, you're going to want color that does sell. Let's talk a little bit about pleasing color. We look at these images and, well, gosh, you know, they all look pretty good. You know, there's nothing obviously wrong with any of them. But let's take a look at this one image. This is what you produced last month, as an example, okay? You printed this, your customer came, got it. She said, hey, that looks great. Goes back to her office. Now she comes in this month, and today you printed this. And, okay, well, there's nothing obviously wrong. There's nothing in there that really says this color is not correct or it's not accurate, okay? And next month, we'll do a little time traveling here, and next month, this is what you print. And she comes over and looks at that and goes, yeah, that doesn't look bad. But then she gets back to her office and pulls out what you printed the last 2 times she brought in the same job and says, well, gosh, kind of looking at it now, the color's all over the place. Okay, but the problem is, what is this supposed to look like? Okay, we have something in our world called memory colors. Memory colors are something that supposedly in our mind, we know what it's supposed to look like. Theoretically, memory colors are the grass, trees, the sky. One memory color, common memory color is neutrals, gray areas. But even there, gray areas, memory colors are impacted by taste. I mean, all these skin tones can kind of look accurate. You know, we've seen skin tones like this and that, but which one is actually the one that's accurate? What do we want? Often, consistency comes into play here. Consistency is seen by our customers as equaling quality. Okay, we look at something like this. We go to the store, and if we see packages that are the same product where the color's all over, we're going to kind of question, is this accurate? And what we're going to say is not is the printing accurate, but is the product inside accurate? It can all be good. I mean, you go get your favorite cookie at the store and you eat it and it tastes good. And next month you get another bag and, well, it tastes a little different. It still tastes good, but it tastes different. I wonder, did they change the recipe? Is there something going on? The next time you get a bag, it changes again. You start to question, gosh, is there quality control where it should be? What's going on here? It shouldn't be different. People like consistency, and that includes consistency in color reproduction. This is especially important in brand identity. We have these logos that people have spent a lot developing, designing and they want to make sure the color is accurate. This is something your customers are especially going to be sensitive to. If for no other reason, then they've got something to compare it to. They've got the Pantone book or the Toyo book, DIC, HKS, all these books of printed samples where they can pull out that sample chip, compare it to what you printed, and decide, is this accurate or not? Do I like this? Getting color right matters to your business. Why? Well, if you get accurate color, it's going to take less time. Time equals money in our industry. Time equals money in pretty much everyone's industry. Less wasted material. Boy, if you have to reprint a job, the bigger the job that you have to reprint, the more money that isn't in your bank account to be reinvested in your company. It reduces the potential of losing customers. You don't want that customer to over time just go, every time I come in, the color's a little different. Potential of losing business. Okay, these customers kind of decide to go elsewhere, and worse, they start to talk to other people and you lose your good reputation. Okay, the reputation you spend a lot of time building, where we do really good color, we really produce good quality results, and people start going, I don't think so. Every time I go there, I see something different. Okay. A few terms I'd like you to understand before we go through the rest of the presentation here, just so that we understand. Now, this is kind of a very high level, 10,000 foot overview of these terms, but the first is calibration. Calibration is a process we perform on our printers, and it ensures what we call the maximum gamut. Gamut is how much color, and we want to be able to get the most color out of our output devices that we can. It also ensures the consistency, the most color, and consistently that amount of color day in, day out, week in, week out. Next up then is profiling. When we profile, we produce a file that understands how our output devices reproduce color on specific media. And I want to be very careful there. Calibration and profiling are per media. It's not per output device, unless, of course, you only use one media on that output device, then it would be. But usually we have to consider calibration and profiling as per media. Now, again, kind of new to our area is verification. Verification can allow you to determine if your color is accurate, rather than just taking a sheet off and looking at it and going, yeah, I guess it looks good. I think I remember that this is what it looked last time. If you make that statement, you can pretty much assume it's wrong. Take a look at the color of your walls right now. Wherever you're sitting, take a look at that color on the wall. Now, this afternoon or tomorrow morning, I want you to go to the local paint shop and go grab the one paint chip that matches what you remember seeing on that wall and come back and see how close you are. Chances are it may not be as close as you really wish it could. We don't remember color. Our eye is a great comparator of color, two side by side, but we don't necessarily remember color. Verification helps take care of that. And most importantly, it can help you understand when you should take corrective action, ideally before you're producing inaccurate color that is going to be rejected. The Color 101 Fundamentals of Color Management e-learning course, available at learning.efi.com, covers all these terms and many, many more in great detail. And I do recommend, if you haven't taken a look at that e-learning course, please do so. Learning.efi.com. It's free to register, and by far the majority of the courses that we have available up there are available at no charge for both you and your customers. So please take advantage. In the Fundamentals of Color Management, I cover all these terms and something like delta E. Well, what is delta E? Delta E is a way we define color accuracy. When we measure two colors and compare them, the software that we have, say Fiery Color Profiler Suite or Color Guard, it will report the accuracy as a numerical value. It will say, hey, it is 3 or it is 7. As you can see, 7 is much farther away than 3. You can use these numbers to determine whether you are producing accurate color or not. I'm going to get into the use of these in just a little bit. But to use this, what we do is, and there's something weird with that one graphic. For whatever reason, it regularly comes up with that teal background. Kind of looks a little more attractive, but not quite accurate. So you can kind of ignore that. But these are two color control strips, one from the ID Alliance here in the United States, and one from Fogra, located in Germany. And we would print these on our media, measure it with our spectrophotometer, and then compare it to something like an industry standard. And we'd get a report. Are we within the tolerance? If you look on the right area here, the right-hand area, you can see these numbers. Those are those delta E values I just talked about. And as long as our numbers are below the reference numbers, life is good and we have passed. You can even do it where it's just a very quick passed. You don't even have to look at the details. If you see passed, you know you're good to go. You know you can start printing jobs. And again, this is verification. This in much more detail next month. You'll hear a lot of people talk about something called G7. And G7 is used quite a bit and misunderstood quite a bit. The G in G7 stands for gray balance. G7 was developed to try to help offset presses have a more pleasing visual appearance, a better visual color match from one press to the next. And G, the grayscale, it was found that if the grayscale is accurate, and if we try to get the seven primary colors, cyan, magenta, yellow, black, red, green, blue, if we try to get those close to each other, and especially the G, the grayscale, then we're going to have a better acceptance from our customers if we print on different media across different printing presses, okay? And the value of G7 calibration here on our toner or inkjet printers is it can help ensure that grays are neutral. Now, the current version of Color Profiler Suite can perform a G7 calibration, but it does not take the place of color management, okay? We need to control a lot of things in order to perform color management, and the grays and the solids are just part of it, okay? But it can help if you're not able to conform to a specification. If a customer says, well, it's got to match this, but they pick a media that just really can't get you there. Usually it means the white point of the media is not accurate enough to the specification, they say. Well, if you've done a G7 calibration, at least the neutrals look neutral and you've tried to do as much as you can for the color, and it can help, okay? Let's do another quick poll here. How many of you own spectrophotometer? How many spectrophotometers do you own? And does your company own a light booth for controlling color? Okay, so let's answer those. Give you just a second. And we'll see the answers to those questions in just a moment. Let's move on now and talk a little bit about consistency versus accuracy. Terms are kind of mixed up a little bit. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, there we've got consistent. All the dots are close together, but they're not accurate. They're, you know, we want that bullseye. The bottom is the worst. Boy, there we've got, you know, colors all over the place. Well, we've got one that's accurate, but the rest aren't accurate, and we're certainly not consistent. And people say, well, do you want consistency or do you want accuracy? In my world, you should want both. You want consistency and accuracy, and ideally both at the same time. You want consistent color and you want accurate color. That's what's going to please your customers. That's what we're trying to get here. How about the poll responses, Joanna? What have we got to the last two questions?
Yes, I have that. Just a minute. Let me share that with you.
Okay, so we have, wow, 40% of you have 2 or more spectrophotometers. Now, I want to bring something. We're going to talk about spectrophotometers here a little later, but the fact that some of you own more than one, 40%, 42% own one, 40% own 2 or more. That's 82% own something. 9%, very, very few of you don't own anything, but you may want to consider purchasing one. But the people that own more than one understand that they don't necessarily match. So you may want to run some tests to make sure that they do match. And for lighting, only 37% own a consistent area or a light booth or something where they can where you can kind of verify that the color is accurate. So that's something many of you are going to want to talk about lighting here in just a little bit. So you're going to want to develop a checklist for color quality process for this process control. And I've got a sample checklist here. Now, don't everybody start scribbling this down, because we're going to go through each of these individually, but also that checklist and a lot of the kind of sample standard operating procedure lists and flowcharts that I put together for this presentation. We've got this all put together in a PDF file that you're going to be able to download, and then you can use it as the basis for putting together your own checklist, your own flowcharts, and your own standard operating procedures. Today, we're just going to look at kind of a sample and see how these would be used to help ensure that you do have accurate color. Okay, so for the sample color quality checklist, the first thing we want to address is define the shop reference, such as Grackle or Fogra 52. And that comes under the heading of what should it look like? What's this stuff supposed to look like? Now, Fogra 51, Fogra 52, Swap, Grackle, ISO coded, ISO uncoded, these were all developed for primarily offset printing presses. They set up a printing press, they put stock on it, they ran it what we call up to the numbers, which means they got the ink densities correct and their curves are all correct. And then they printed samples and they looked at them and said, this color looks nice. Then they measured that color bar, that control bar we looked at earlier, and recorded it and said, this is what Fogra 52 looks like. On a well-run press, this is what your stuff should look like. You run your press to Fogra 52, your color should look like that. Same thing if you happen to run a toner-based printer or an inkjet printer. If you say Fogra 52 or Grackle, we now know what color should look like. Fogra 51, Fogra 52, those are used primarily in Europe. ISO coded, ISO uncoded, are usually used worldwide, and Swap and Grackle in the Americas and more in the Pacific Rim area. Now, you may develop a shop specification. Maybe you kind of did the same thing that the Fogra and Ideal Ions people did, where you just tweak color on your output device until you like it. Say, this is good, and your customers like it. So, well, the world is good. Life is wonderful. Our clients are happy. Checks aren't bouncing. So we have our shop specification. That's fine. But you need to make sure that you hold that color accurately over time. How about spot color accuracy? Look at these logos from Fogra, from ISO. They're going to want to make sure that the color is accurately reproduced. Hey, that little company down in the corner, EFI, and that thing called Fiery, those people probably want to make sure that looks good. How do we control spot color accuracy? They're really somewhat two different things. Okay, we're going to get to that. Again, the Color 101 Fundamentals of Color Management cover these specifications in greater detail. All right, so let's say we've selected a shop reference, maybe Grackle, maybe Fogra 52. Now we're going to want to make sure that our spectrophotometer is accurate. Okay, we need to make sure that the instrument we use to measure color is giving us correct results. Okay, has it been recertified annually? We're not going to post that question because for the most part the answer is going to be no, because almost no one sends their spectrophotometer back in to be recertified, but it is something you should consider. The manufacturers of these devices, well, one, they would like you to send them in for recertification. If you're not going to recertify, they'd probably be just as happy if you just bought a new one each year and then just use that one for the next year. But that gets a little pricey. It's something you would want to consider. Maybe you have more than one, and every 6 months you send one of them back in for recertification to make sure that you get accurate results. You could measure the same control bar if you have multiple devices too, and make sure that you get the same results, the same accuracy between the two devices. And that's a good way of doing a quality check. If you don't get the same results, you should be recertifying them. Are they still supported by the manufacturer? Eventually, manufacturers release new devices, and they, just like our software, our Windows and our Mac operating systems, they wind up not supporting the old systems anymore. Okay, they wind up not supporting the old devices, so you can't get it recertified. Now, the new devices also offer additional functionality, additional features that you may want to take advantage of. Has the device been dropped? Well, how often has it been dropped? These are very, very precise precision devices. You should make sure everyone in your shop understands that, and they're not tossing it from one user to the other to measure on the other side of the shop and oops, it got dropped. Are you using the correct measurement mode? The newer devices have modes you can select, M0, M1, M2, they're called, and it's what kind of a light source inside the spectro is being used to measure the color, and it can impact the results, okay? Again, the color courses that we have up at learning.efi.com cover all of this. Do you know how to use it properly? Sometimes people, depending upon the type of chart they print, can use the device in what we call freehand. It's a handheld device. They simply put it on top and press the button and run it across the top of the media to measure. Well, if you rock it a little bit, if you measure a little too fast, a little slowly, you may get different results than someone that doesn't do that. So you want to make sure that you're using the device properly. Okay. All right, so we've got that taken care of. Now we want to talk about light booth lamp accuracy and really just lighting in general. You should always view samples in what we call D50 lighting. D50 stands for the color and the quality of light. A lot of people say, well, that's just daylight. That's not entirely accurate, because if you go down to your local home improvement store, you might have daylight lamps from different manufacturers, and they're not necessarily going to give you the same color and quality of light. There's variation, and the printed material, the inks and toner and media that we use will react differently under different daylight lamps. So you want to make sure you get the right ones. There's a legal requirement often, especially if you do printing for government agencies. They might specify exactly the type of lighting you should be using to verify the accuracy. Okay, it gives a consistent customer experience. They're always going over to your light booth or to the same viewing area. They're not, well, they're in Tom's office. Next week, they're in Mary's office. They're actually standing outside next to their car, taking a look at the stuff, okay? Everybody in your shop should be aware of where you should be verifying color, where you should be viewing color with the customer, okay? Colors may not match without one, okay? Why is that? Well, our media contains things called optical brighteners. Optical brighteners are chemicals that make the paper look brighter when ultraviolet light strikes them. Now, we can't see ultraviolet light. It's invisible. But when it hits optical brighteners, it what calls fluoresces. It's the same kind of theory as how fluorescent tubes work. The material in there fluoresces, and it kind of glows a little bit. And it kicks off visible light after absorbing invisible light. So that extra light bounces back, and that light is in the blue area. So if you have media with optical brighteners, and if you have a light source with a lot of UV, the media is going to look brighter and it's going to look bluer than if it's viewed in an area that doesn't have ultraviolet, which means if you're on the phone with your customer and you don't know what viewing conditions they're looking at the printed job, and they're talking about the color, you may be looking at two different products, okay? So you want to be careful about the lighting. Always evaluate in a D50 light booth, and a booth is important. You could just get the lamps and string them up above a work area, but the walls of the light booth are very specific. The background, everything, it's a specific gray. It's really kind of a high-tech piece of equipment, although it just kind of looks like a bunch of fluorescent tubes hanging in this little area that's usually too small. Regularly perform lamp maintenance. You want to get professional grade lamps. Now the technical term is these are ISO 3664:2009 lamps. If you call up and say you want ISO 3664:2009 lamps, and they go, what on earth are you talking about? That's probably not the place you want to buy your lamps from. Okay, you should buy them from the supplier of the light booth. You know, your graphic art supplier, if they supply light booths, they also should supply the lamps for them. You need to replace them regularly because they are no longer accurate before they burn out. Okay, when you you should have replaced it long before them. You can still use them in other areas of the shop, just not where you're doing critical color. So it's not like you're necessarily wasting money on these lamps, but they will often be specified in a certain number of hours. The high-end light booths actually have a timer on them. When you replace the lamps, you reset the timer, and it will tell you, it's time to replace the lamps, so that you replace them before they become inaccurate. Next, we want to talk about recalibration and a schedule for this recalibration. So again, remember, recalibration is correcting for device drift. Now, which media? Remember I said earlier, calibration is media dependent. So you're going to have to pick which media, and I'm not talking just which single media, but which of the media you want to use for recalibration. How often? Verification, and especially something we call trending analysis, are going to help you determine how often you should do recalibration. We'll get into that much more next month. The Optimizing Color and Consistency covers recalibration and talks about that. And coming soon, I'm just finishing up probably early next week, we're going to be posting a brand new Fiery Cut Sheet Color Calibration e-learning course, a very extensive course that covers recalibration in Color Profiler Suite, in Command Workstation, covers job recalibration, system recalibration, building calibration files. All of that is going to be covered. So watch for that in the next few days up at learning.efi.com. Okay, so we've determined our recalibration schedule. Now we have to determine which paper types we want to perform the recalibration process, or if we haven't done it, actually build calibrations for. Okay, so to determine which media we want to use, you want to first look at your primary media. What is most of your work printed on? That might be one you would select to perform the recalibration process on. Your highest quality media. Oh, this is kind of what we hang our hat on. We say this is what shows that we are a high quality shop. The media that's most important, or that's for your most important client or your most demanding client. You all know who your most demanding client is. Maybe that's the one you want to make sure you take control of. Or the media that is your most profitable. And I've said or to all of these. It might also be and. Again, it's up to you to choose which media you really need to have the tightest control on. Next, you can determine which custom calibration and profiles are needed. This goes beyond just simply recalibration. Normally, you can just pick one size of any media. You don't need the 8.5 by 11 and the 11/17 or the A3 and the A4. You just pick one size. Normally, the largest size your printer can hold, because it allows you to print the largest target, which has the most patches, which will give you the most accuracy. Okay? One calibration may work for multiple media, especially if they have similar white points and they're the same category, such as or coated. If you take the two coated media from two manufacturers and you look at them and go, boy, the white point, the color of white and the density of white of the media itself, boy, they're awfully close. You might be able to use one calibration for both of them. You can use custom media profiles for multiple media. You'll see, especially in the e-learning courses, that you can have the same calibration, but a different custom media profile that'll take that last little bit of inconsistency out of the equation. This can often work well for toner and UV ink printers, not so much for aqueous inkjet printers. Aqueous inkjet printers, and that means ink that's really water-based, that if you print too much of it, it comes out wet. The media on those type of printers greatly impacts color, and you likely would not use the same calibration and profiles for that type of inkjet printer. But for toner printers, there are times you actually can use it. It's up to you to determine if the color is accurate enough. You're going to want to establish standard operating procedures, and the S is red there for a reason. Multiple standard operating procedures, because you're going to have standard operating procedures for different areas of your company, ideally. A standard operating procedure is a set of step-by-step instructions that help you, your workers, your employees, your staff carry out complex routines. It helps ensure that you're efficiently using the equipment, that you're producing quality output, and uniformity of performance. It also can reduce miscommunication. I was called into a shop years ago, and they were producing output. Sometimes they could match it on press, and sometimes they couldn't match it on press. And I said, are your workers producing the same work the same way? And they said, everybody does the same thing the same way. Well, as soon as I heard that, I was a little suspect. And I said, did you train them? They said, no. I said, okay, then they don't do the same thing the same way. And through investigation, we found out that no, they weren't doing the same thing. They had their applications set up differently. Some were printing directly to the output device. Some were generating a PostScript file. Some were simply saving as a PostScript file. Some were printing to a PostScript file through a driver. All sorts of different ways, because they really didn't communicate with their staff, and they didn't have standard operating procedures on even how to create jobs. Okay. Couple more questions here. Do you have a color training certification? Is anyone certified in color accuracy in your facility? Do you have standard operating procedures that you have developed for color? Okay, give you a couple seconds to answer that. And we'll come back to those answers in just a little bit. Let's talk about the type of standard operating procedures that you might develop. Fundamental standard operating procedures, color and quality assurance, fiery configure. We're going to go through samples of these in just a little bit. File preparation, incredibly important. Printing, obviously. And what happens if something goes wrong? Okay, do we have a standard procedure, or do we all run around with our hair on fire going, something's wrong, please someone fix it? Let's take a look at the poll answers for the last two questions. Joanna, do you have those for me, please?
I am closing, just 3 seconds, so it
okay,
goes
I'll
down
bring
and then I'll
waiting.
share. Yes. So, okay, you should be able to see it now.
Okay, so yeah, about 37% of you do have a person on staff that has some type of color certification, and that's good. We do recommend that someone understand color, again, from beginning to end, and that is everything from the creation of the job all the way through to final finishing. And the next question also was, well, we've got 43% said, yes, the company does have standard operating procedures for color. So less than half of you, the rest of you, take a look at this and really consider coming up with a process to ensure that you do have good color. Okay, let's talk about the first fundamental standard operating procedure, the fundamental one. Do you perform machine maintenance on a regular basis? Okay, do you do things? Do you have a chart that, yes, this was done, that was done, we've cleaned the machine, we've had it serviced? If your machine maintenance consists of, why has the printer been making that really funny noise for the last 2 weeks? No, you need to have a standard operating procedure for machine maintenance. Updating the software. Do you keep Windows and your Mac OS and Command Workstation and Color Profiles? Do you keep them all up to date? Are they set to do that automatically, or does somebody have to remember to do that? Okay. The color specification. Do you use SWAP, Grackle, a shop standard? Does everyone know that? That's kind of one of the basics. Again, what is it supposed to look like? Which media do we regularly perform calibration and profiling on? Okay. Do we move media to the print area right before we use it, or do we bring it in to let it acclimate to the printing area? If your media is stored in an unheated, unair-conditioned, unenvironmentally controlled area, it may print differently today when you bring it right into the print shop area than it will tomorrow, the next day, the day after, especially if there's a big difference in temperature and humidity. Okay. Do you ensure all firing systems use the same settings? Okay, so that no matter which job you print on which machine, you get the correct settings each time. Or even on the same machine, do all your operators use the same or the appropriate settings? Have you trained your staff? This is a rare one. Have you trained your customers? Do your customers understand what they should do to ensure that their jobs print correctly? All too often, the answer to that question is no. And what we as printing professionals do is, well, we fix their job and then print it. We don't tell them. Okay. Number one, we don't want to embarrass them. And we don't want to cause them headaches by constantly complaining to them that they have to, do their jobs correct, because then they're going to go to the infamous guy down the street that never complains about my jobs. And the guy down the street is doing what we used to do. We just correct them and just not say anything to the customers. The best is train your customer. They're going to appreciate it. And I'm not saying you say, I'm going to pull you into my shop and spend the next 3 weeks training you. Just little things, one at a time, get it to them. How about quality assurance? Again, how do we know that our color is accurate? Well, our standard operating procedure should include items like calibrating, profiling, verifying. Which media are we going to use? Are we going to pick our main media, a number of media? Okay. How often do we perform this? Should also be part of your standard operating procedure. How do we match spot colors? Are we trying to match multiple devices or multiple media on multiple devices? Okay. Do we have a procedure to make sure that we do that? Now, a fundamental fact is that you can only match to the system that produces the lowest quality output. And output on plain media likely is never going to be able to match the output on a bright white gloss coated media. So if your customer says, I need this on really, really low grade, nasty looking media and this on incredibly high quality media, and by the way, they have to match, your customer needs some education, because you're only going to be able to print an ugly looking job on really expensive media, which is kind of a waste. How about break fix? Stuff goes wrong. What are you going to do there? What happens when it fails? Well, you're going to have to take corrective action. First, you want to ask yourself, has anything changed? Okay. Is the printer functioning correctly? Again, it started making noise a few days ago. Has it just drifted? Did we recalibrate? Oh, did we get new media in? Are we using new media, or did that new toner come in? And do I remember seeing that new and improved sticker? Boy, if you see a new and improved sticker come in on your media or your toner, it is just going to ruin your day, because you're going to have to do testing, and you might have to build new calibration files, new ICC profiles, but it's something you need to take control of. But also ask yourself, is the job itself correct? Okay. Do you verify? If you verify, then you know whether the job was printed correctly. Do you pre-flight or post-flight? These can help you determine if something's wrong with the job itself. Do you have a proof? Did you make a proof that you sent to your customer that they signed off on, and now you're trying to match that proof and it doesn't match? Well, that kind of points to the problem being you. If your customer sent you a proof, do they know how to make proofs? Or did they just print something off their desktop inkjet or toner printer and they said, I like this, you should match this? Well, maybe that's not really a proof. Maybe that's just kind of a virtual visual wish list. Process control serves to enable the initiation of failure recovery. Something's broken, something's not working right. And this will happen as soon as possible if you have good process control. Even with process control, failures are still going to occur. Machines are still going to break. New media is still going to come into your facility, okay? But failure recovery procedures, they're so important that you have a standard set of procedures. It's not always step-by-step, do this, do this, do this, but it's more of a flow chart. Here's a sample of what I mean. Okay, is the calibration current? We just got a job. We're starting to print a job and the color's not accurate. Is the calibration current? Well, it either is or it isn't. If it's not, hey, recalibrate. That's an easy one. And then retest. Don't immediately just go to print the job. Do a test, ideally using something like verification. Oh, yeah. The calibration is current. We just did it yesterday morning. Is the correct substrate in the machine? If it's not, again, an easy one. Get back to the substrate you're supposed to be using for that job. And again, retest, make sure that that is what it is. Yeah, the substrate was correct. Can you check the density on the output device? If you can, and if it's okay, well, you might have to refresh the ICC profile. Again, these tasks are covered in the e-learning courses up at elearning.com. The calibration course, in a few days. By the time the next session we have next month, new profiling courses should also be available. And again, retest. Density check. Yeah, it's not okay. You might have to adjust, or you might have to have a service call, get your printer service. And especially if they've replaced parts, you're likely going to have to recalibrate and maybe even reprofile. Now here, recalibrate might mean rebuild a new calibration file and build a new ICC media profile, and then again, retest. But you have to take corrective action. You have to develop and follow some kind of a troubleshooting flowchart so that, again, it's the same process every time. Okay? Well, every time I get an inaccurate color, I do this, but Mary does that, and George does this. You've got to have consistency. Okay? There are also additional tools that can help you determine whether it's the file, whether it's the fiery, or press problems. We're going to cover these in the next session, so make sure you come in next month because these are some really, really cool tools that you can have available that will help you determine where exactly the problem is. Okay, how about we determine what regularly means? Calibrate your digital print system regularly. Well, what does that mean? Is that every day? Do we print every day? Do we print one of those control bars? And do we take into consideration all of the variables? The fiery settings, are they the same every time we verify? Is the media the same? Okay. Do we measure that color bar and determine it's accurate? And yes, and ideally, do we track the trend? Is it going in the right direction? Okay. And if it is, then we kind of have to ask ourselves, is the document correct? Look at this document. It just passed verification, but boy, it looks awful. That top image on the left, it's all washed out. The one on the right, look at that drop shadow, that red drop shadow, and the whites around the photographs. That's blue. That's kind of like that control bar we looked at earlier, an issue there. That middle image there is just dark. The one on the right is oversaturated. The one on the bottom, it's supposed to be color. Well, it kind of is, kind of green and magenta. But it certainly isn't correct. And gosh, I'm not even going to try to wonder if that spot color is correct. Okay. Document 101, the fundamentals of document creation and digital printing, is a fairly new course up at the learning.efi.com, but it covers a lot of the fundamental ideas of what makes a good document. And again, you should take a look at this and send it to your customers also. Again, these are all free. Okay, you take a look at Document 101 and it'll give you all the fundamentals. Late this year, early next year, there's going to be 3 more courses in the series, creating documents using Adobe applications, using Microsoft applications, and using Corel applications. How you use those applications to make sure that the job is correct. Because what you have to remember is the #1 rule of verification is it only ensures the document was printed correctly. It doesn't ensure that the document was created correctly. Color management and process control do not fix bad documents. Okay? If your customer took a photograph and it's really dark and really orange and you print it accurately, it should look really dark and really orange. Okay? And your customer has to understand that. So how about compliance? What are we monitoring when we monitor compliance? We're not just doing calibration. It's temperature, humidity, media storage. Yes, the calibration profiles. The frequency, how often do we do it? Daily, weekly, per job, within a job. I've seen customers, they have very, very long job runs where they might verify throughout the job run, especially if they're maybe doing things for like the government or producing very important documents. I've got a customer I know that produces medical documentation, and they'll verify throughout a job run to make sure those images look accurate. Okay? Again, frequency, daily, weekly, within a job, maximum variation permitted, tolerance. Again, do you have an industry standard that has published tolerances that you follow? Okay? Do you have a method to display and share the results? Or is it, hey, Mary, when you verified this morning, was it good? Yep, it was good. Or is there a web-based application that anybody can go to and see is the color accurate and see what the trend is? How about spot colors? Kind of, the holy grail. Boy, if we can get spot colors accurate, we're golden. But do you need spot color accuracy? A lot of customers don't. They don't care. They put down a red color and they just want to make sure it doesn't come out orange or green. But some people do need spot color accuracy. Do your customers even use spot colors? Do they generate the file so that it comes to you as a spot? A lot of times you might open a document in something like Acrobat and find that the document has just RGB values or CMYK values, not spot colors like Pantone 214, unnamed spot color. What kind of accuracy does your customer require? You can use Spot On or Spot Pro, which we'll look at next month, to set the expectations. This can be very, very important. Improve the color accuracy, but set expectations. The new versions of the software, you can print a swatch book that will show your customer their spot colors that they use on the media they want to use. And they'll know ahead of time what it's going to look like. Not like the swatch book, because the swatch book is probably not printed with toner on plain media. And ultimately, you cash large checks because everything is now under control. Well, now it's time for you to establish your color goals, okay? What are you going to do? And again, we covered a lot of stuff here, but just take it one step at a time, just one thing. First of all, determine what your expectations are, what your customer expectations are. How high do you have to raise that bar? Might be as simple as deciding what to match. What is everything supposed to look like? And then take a look and maybe do a little inventory. What color management needs do you have versus what are your current capabilities? Do you need to upgrade things? Do you need a new spectrophotometer? Do you need a spectrophotometer? Do you need color management software? Identify the customer requirements. Do they even know what Grackle or Fulgra are? Again, have them take the courses or you explain it to them. Are visual samples produced? Do you make proofs for your high-end customers that you supply to them on your equipment? Or are you accepting their proofs, proofs, and saying, yeah, that's what we're supposed to match when you really don't have a chance of matching it because it wasn't produced correctly? So the next step is yours. Develop your own color management implementation checklist. Easy one. Take care of lighting. Get a good quality light booth or at least an area that has good quality lamps. The lamps I talked about earlier in that area, and everybody knows that's where you go to look at color. Media selection and handling. Get away from we order our media from whoever has the cheapest media every month, whatever's on sale. Try to stick with one vendor or one vendor for each brand. Okay? Selection of specification. What do we want to match? Okay? These are all things that are easy to do, and any one of them will help you improve your color quality. Calibration, profiling, verification, and trending analysis. Adding those, again, doesn't have to be all at once, but can really help you take control of your color. Working with spot colors, is that something you have to do or not? And a lot of this comes down to training. Develop your own checklist, standard operating procedures, and flowcharts for printer maintenance. For the fiery configuration, do screen grabs. When I produce the training videos that I host at learning.efi.com, I have a checklist that has screen grabs of all the panels for producing the video. What is the font supposed to look like? What size? What color? What are the settings when I generate the video? All of those are part of my checklist as pictures. Make one of those for your operators. The panels that show the fiery settings, okay? For your fiery configuration checklist, use images. For the file creation, for that output, that print panel, what should be checked? What should be selected on the drop-down menus? Media selection, calibration, profiling. Do we all do it again the same way? Processing, printing, verification, job failure, that correction workflow, that flow chart. Put one of those together. Now, additional resources we have to help you in all of this. Recording of this webinar is going to be available, as Joanna said, in a few days, along with a PDF of these slides. You'll have that checklist and SOP list that you can download and use it as a guide. Again, it's generic in nature. You can customize it for yourself, and you should. The training materials we have and additional support and help resources. Training. If you haven't, take advantage of learning.efi.com, the resources that we have there. For this presentation, I would recommend the Color 101, the Fundamentals of Color Management, and Fiery Color Fundamentals, Optimizing Color and Consistency, and that Document 101 course. Take a look at them, review them, have your customers or the rest of your staff take a look. Again, the only cost is an investment in time, and it's an investment in time to improve the color. Coming soon is going to be the cut sheet color calibration. That will certainly be released by the next webinar, and hopefully the color profiling course also. We do have full certification programs. You may want to have someone on your staff certified as a fiery professional, as a fiery expert. We have EFI communities, communities.efi.com, where you can post questions, where your peers, other people in the industry, and staff at EFI will answer your questions. So we have a lot that we have to offer you for hand-holding moving forward. It's not just this one webinar, but please come back next month and we'll tie this together even a little more and get a little more into the idea of the hands-on that we can have. Carrie, back to you.
Thank you, John. So a lot of great information there. So as a reminder, you will receive a copy of the presentation and the recording of this session so that you can go back and review any of the details and of course share with colleagues if you wish. So before we cover your questions and give you some answers, and we'll get to as many as we can, I'd just like to remind you of next month's part 2 session, where we'll take a look at the techniques and solutions to maintain great colour. This session is also open for registration. So, okay, Joanna, let's take a look at some of the questions that we've had come in.
Yes, very good. So
and
let's
Joanna,
start.
Before you go, am I correct? Yes. We are also going to put the questions and answers in a document that everyone will get also. So if we don't get to answer it, take a look for the written version coming soon.
Correct.
Oh,
yes. Yes. So if we don't get to everything, we'll make that document for you.
So then ask me the easy ones for now.
Yeah. So the first one here, John, how do I know which measurement mode to use when creating an ICC profile?
Which measurement mode comes down to, first of all, an easy decision is, are you printing to one of the newer specifications from FOGRA or from the ID Alliance? FOGRA 51, FOGRA 52, the 2013 swap and grackle were all measured using M1. That's a setting on newer spectrophotometers where they contain really kind of a little bit of UV. It was meant to match a standard viewing condition. The beauty of that is the reference profiles that we have available on our fiery systems for those newer specifications, as well as the newer lamps in our light booths, are all M1. So you really get that consistency if you have, you know, M1 lamps, M1 specifications, M1 standards, M1 measurements. You've got a much better shot at making sure you've controlled color. Now, if you don't use that, then M0 or M2 either allows all the UV through or filters out all the UV. I would recommend that you use the measurement that allows the UV to be measured. There's no filter in place, especially if you have media that has optical brighteners in it. You can actually get kind of like a black light viewing source, and you can turn that on, and boy, if that media just glows like the white T-shirt at the restaurant or at the club where they've got a lot of black lights. If it looks like that T-shirt, you've got a lot of optical brighteners. You're going to want to take that into consideration, because then anytime optical brighteners are there, the media is going to look different. Now, if you use media without optical brighteners, it kind of doesn't matter, because the main reason for these measurement modes is to address the fact of the optical brighteners.
All right. So we have another one. Do we have free trial versions of any of your color software so that I can see how they fit into my color workflow?
To some extent, Fiery Color Profiler Suite can be downloaded, and it will allow you to do calibrations just like you can do in Command Workstation, new calibrations and recalibrations. There are demo modes of some of the other tools in there. If you want to build ICC profiles, then the software will have to be licensed. You would have to purchase a license if you want to actually build ICC profiles. But some of the tools are available, at least for demo. You can also get a 30-day trial license for products like ColorGuard, which will do trending analysis. If you've got a Spectro, you could download ColorGuard for 30 days and start doing process monitoring and see, gee, how does your color look, you know, over the space of the 30 days. So it depends upon the product. If you go to the website and take a look at the products, it'll let you know whether trials are available or not, or ask your friendly EFI representative or dealer.
Okay. And what does the recertification process entail for a device like the ES2000?
It does entail sending the device back to the manufacturer, and they will run a check on it, run it through its paces, do a cleaning on it, and certify that it is good. They usually certify devices for 1 year. So if it's a device that they still do recertification for, the old handheld devices and any of the older devices, there's not a recertification process for if it has been discontinued. So you would contact the manufacturer and say, hey, X-Rite, can you recertify this? Barbieri, any of the manufacturers, and they'll let you know what the cost would be. You send it back to them, and they will recertify it and return it to you.
Okay, I think that also answers some of the following questions. Thanks, John. And I think this question came when you asked if people have spectrophotometers. So the question was, do you mean spectrophotometer separate from the one purchased with the Fiery printer?
No, any spectrophotometer, an ES2000, ES3000, 6000, an i1 Pro 2, the Barbieri. If you use Color Profiler Suite, one thing you will notice is you can use more of the measurement devices will be available for use. If you use Command Workstation, you're looking at the ES2000, ES1000, the older device. Color Profiler Suite does support newer ones. So if you have a supported measurement device that came with your Fiery with Color Profiler Suite, by all means, check and make sure that that's what you can use. Likely the answer is going to be yes.
Okay. Since we are reached out of time, I'll take 2 more questions, and then we'll put, as we said, the unanswered questions in a document and send it out to you guys.
Okay.
So I know Command Workstation can do pass-fail measurements, but can Fiery do verification tracking over a period of time for large format machines like Vutex and fabric printers?
Color Profiler Suite does not. It will do verification, and yes, Command Workstation connected to an inkjet printer, such as a Vutex. You can use verification built in and get a pass-fail, and the same thing with Color Profiler Suite, standalone Color Profiler Suite for our cut sheet devices. To do trending analysis, you would need something such as Color Guard, and that is available right now for cut sheet printers, and we are developing the links so that we will be able to do trending analysis for inkjet printers, and hopefully that will be coming soon.
Very good. And I have the last question of today. Is there a way to get accurate color only with a color profile? We don't have a spectrophotometer and our light booth is small and lame.
Well, my answer to that is kind of like if you have a car and you have no speedometer on it, are you going to be driving the speed limit? You might at one point. Next minute, you might be going too slow. Next minute, you might be going too fast, but you really don't know. So if you don't have a spectrophotometer, in order to measure color, it's just guesswork. You can print out samples. I recommend printing out samples that run the gamut of colors. Put together ramps of neutral, cyan, magenta, yellow, black, red, green, blue, overprints, photographs that have pastels, that have bright colors. A lot of times you see verification images that are all just really bright circusy kind of colors. Those are kind of easy to kind of visually say look good, but pastels, near neutrals, things like that, print them out and use them, put them in a drawer somewhere where they're not in direct sunlight, not be affected by high temperature and humidity, and then reprint that on a regular basis and pull it out. And you might find that for your customers, the tolerance you have for color, might be close enough that you don't need to buy a spectrophotometer. But if you know that, if there's variations and you don't like it, the only thing you can do is invest in process control for your printer, and that often entails purchasing a spectrophotometer and something like Color Profiler Suite.
Great. Thanks, John. I would like to thank everyone who joined us today. I hope you enjoyed the session, and please join our next session next month. You can register at www.efi.com/WOF. I hope to see you there. Thanks, John, for this great presentation. Thank you, Carrie. And yeah, I hope to see you next time.
You are welcome, and thanks everybody for virtually showing up today. We appreciate it.